Ciao.
Heart and soul of WWDC. And to tell you about the new developer features and technologies we've been building to help you take your apps to the next level, here's our...
You're interested in, or what it was that interested you. You're not just here for my amusement, August. I am also here for yours. August Trometer is here with us, everybody. August Trometer, friend of the show, and one of the only developers who still returns my calls.
Not true.
Well, okay, sometimes you return my calls. Anyway, I did want to, because so much of WWDC, Jeff Gamet was on this show like a week ago, and we were talking about the keynote, and he said the keynote is as much for consumers and the press as it is for developers. And some years that's true. I don't know that I felt that was true this year, but I'm not a developer. So I don't know what other people see versus what I see and what have you. And so I wanted to get a developer on and talk developer type things. Do you want to talk?
And I drew the short straw.
Well, you picked up the phone. How many times have I told you? How many times? Do you want to talk about, I'm curious, do you want to talk about what interested you in the keynote and then go into the developer stuff? Do you want to talk about my developer questions and then, finish off with what interested you? What would you like to do?
Let's do what interested me.
Okay.
It was such a whirlwind of information.
Yeah. And
it is so hard to actually pick a favorite, but there was so much that I liked. The fact that they are really, really hitting the nail on security and privacy makes me very, very happy. From a technological point of view, I liked iCloud Plus mostly because I actually pay for a VPN, and maybe now I won't have to.
All right, hold on a second. Do me a favor and tell me how it is that iCloud Plus is a VPN, because time being what it is and production schedules being what they are, I've already talked to Jeff Gamet, who is going to be on Wednesday's edition of In a Few Minutes. And it was after we were done, he was like, well, iCloud Plus is just Apple's VPN. And I was like, I didn't hear them say they were doing a VPN. He's like, well, they didn't say that, but it is. So help me out for people like me who might have missed that. How is iCloud Plus a VPN?
So a VPN essentially encrypts all of your data from the source, whatever device that might be, whether it's your phone or your laptop or what have you.
Yeah.
Sends it through a server somewhere and then redirects it to get the information that you are seeking. So, for example, let's say you were searching for, I don't know. This is a kind of a touchy topic, but let's say you were searching for.
Why don't we just say you're searching for something you wouldn't necessarily want anybody to know you're searching for?
Exactly.
Okay.
Or more likely, you're searching for something and you are on a public network.
Right. Okay.
And maybe you're not even searching. Maybe you're logging into something. Maybe your company is sending you documents over the air. All of those things, and the communications gets encrypted back to their servers, goes through Apple's, and then sends it on to you. And actually, Apple says it goes through two servers to provide more safety. Mm-hmm. The only thing that troubles me about using Apple's incarnation of a VPN is that Apple has sort of a spotted past in terms of sharing things on its server. Now, they say that none of that information is unencryptable by them. Mm-hmm. That you're the only person who can, unencrypt it and or decrypt it, and they say they can't do that. But That doesn't mean the FBI isn't going to like try and get Apple to cough up records. And that troubles me a little bit to use their service.
Well, I mean, the only problem there, I think, is if the government suddenly starts saying again, no, seriously, we're going to need a backdoor, right? I mean,
right.
You got to trust Apple. I mean, you don't have to trust Apple. You don't have to trust anybody. But if you're going to trust anybody, you might trust Apple to say that they can't, decrypt that. You're the only one who can. Until Congress, finally finds one thing they can get together on. And that one thing might be, making sure that they have access to your information, mine, and whoever else's they need / want.
Yeah, and this is a carrot to dangle in front of Congress going, okay, we we locked you out of our phones, and now we're going to lock you out of all the communication that the phones have.
Yeah. Well, that's fun. Now, there was another thing really quickly, because I do want to get to the developer stuff, but you were actually saying that you were very excited about some of the changes they made for AirPods.
Yeah, I thought that was really, really clever. Basically, I look at it as portrait mode for your AirPods. And just the way on portrait mode, when you take somebody's photo, it sort of blurs the background. The same thing sort of happens with your AirPods, and in terms of any noise in the background just fades away. Mm-hmm. Now, I haven't tried it. Nobody really has, but it's going to be an interesting trial. And the fact that they're still even working in that area says a lot to me.
How do you mean?
Well, they still are looking at remote work. They're still looking at the walking down the street and trying to talk to somebody point of view, all of the things where people actually use their devices. So you can talk about walled gardens all you want to, but when it comes down to it, Apple just, they're making a place that you want to spend your time.
Developer Technologies, it's kind of funny because for being the Worldwide Developer Conference, or Worldwide Developers Conference, rather, you guys got like 10 minutes, I think, at the end. except the one thing I was thinking about the whole time I was watching it was I was kind of thinking, well, I'm bored. And I've gotten over that. But, in the moment when I'm waiting for the sizzle, when I'm waiting for the sexy, I'm like, well, I'm not really feeling that. But then it occurs to me maybe developers are as well, because there was a thing that happened in the end with the Developer Technologies where they basically started saying, and so that thing we talked about an hour ago, you can do that. That thing we talked about 45 minutes ago, you can do that. They basically ran through this list of stuff that developers were going to be able to take advantage of. And I was like, oh, he hasn't been talking to me the whole time. He's been talking to developers the whole time. And now at the end of it, he's saying, for the developers who are maybe slow on the uptake, here is where, all of that stuff pays off. The things that they talked about in the Developer Technologies that made it to my notes specifically were the Reality Kit and Object Capture APIs, the universal control, so you could use an iPad and a Mac and an iMac as 3 screens, in case you don't have 3 screens, but you have 3 computers. And then there was the stuff about the app product pages, including the A/B testing. Now, what's funny is I didn't pick up that the VPN was a VPN, but when they said, hey, and you could do, these displays for one person and these displays for another, I was like, hey, they're doing A/B testing, which they didn't say, but of course they are. And then the last thing was Xcode Cloud. So in all of that, Mr. Developer Guy, what turned you on?
When I see stuff like this, I try and see where it's going, not where it is or where it's going to be when they release it. Mm-hmm. So for me, I look at the iPad, I look at Swift Playgrounds, I look at the ability to actually write an app, might be simple, but write an app and submit it to the App Store from your iPad. Mm-hmm. And I think that's pretty impressive, even though it's going to be mostly simple apps and maybe games. Then you take then you take the Xcode Cloud stuff, where Apple's servers will actually compile the app for you. And I remember in my early days of Mac and iPhone development that there were apps I was working on that took minutes, like 10 minutes to compile. So you'd you'd hit compile, and then you'd go and you'd get a cup of coffee. Right. And now all of a sudden you won't have to do that. And this is where I look at it from a future point of view. They're looking at the iPad saying, well, I know it's going to have a lot of power, but it's not going to have as much power as maybe a laptop because it's going to be thinner, et cetera. So where are they going to compile these apps? Well, they're going to do it in the cloud, and Apple's going to do that for them.
Interesting. So you think the cloud thing is about the power, not the collaboration? Because I assume that was the reason to do it, so you don't have to worry about, well, August is working on a version of it. I'm working on a version of it. We've now both screwed with the code, and we have two apps that don't work, as opposed to where we're working on the one bit of code in the cloud. Any changes that I make are reflected back to everyone and vice versa.
Well, I think that is one use of the technology. I mean, the skeptic in me, especially when we start looking at things like this whole Epic problem they've got, Epic being a company, not just
no, it's both,
or Facebook.
Right.
All of these things are checked by Apple before they go to a human who then processes them and makes sure that the app works correctly. But if Apple's doing the compiling of the app, it eliminates a lot of the problems you might have with companies using, APIs that they're not supposed to be using, with URLs that they're not supposed to be accessing. All of the dirty stuff that app developers have tried, Apple gets a first swing at that before the app goes live. And I think that is a big reason that they're doing this.
Anything else you want to hit, sir, before I hang up on you?
Hardware.
Hardware? There was no hardware. The only thing harder to find at the keynote than Tim Cook was hardware.
Yes, it was. And a lot of people expected new laptops.
Yes.
And
I was among those people.
I think that was more wish casting than it was actual probability of that stuff being delivered, because what they're going to come out with the next in terms of laptops, especially on the pro level, is going to require a standalone event. And I think it's very interesting that a lot of people said, well, we haven't heard a lot of rumors about what they're going to do in the OS, and they've got all this legal stuff going on. So we think they're going to release the laptops just to sort of distract from the fact that they don't have a lot in terms of software and the fact that there is a legal issue that they're dealing with. And it turns out that there was just so much software that they wouldn't have even had the time to do a laptop had they wanted to.
Yeah, you see, I did not expect anything great from a laptop, but I did expect a laptop. I'll tell you really quickly, it had nothing to do with, their legal trouble or anything like that. It is that we're in mid-transition. I was one of the only people that I personally knew. I'm not saying I was the only person who was saying it, but I was the only person I personally knew who thought that we were going to get a Mac at the Spring Forward event back in April, because we're in the transition now. So honestly, what I thought we were going to get was an M1. I thought we would get an M1 16-inch MacBook Pro just to go ahead and round out the line at this point. So I mean, yeah, I was wrong, and I feel good about that. But it had nothing to do with any kind of distraction or anything. I just thought, honestly, I think what I said on yesterday's in a few minutes is I expect a new Mac at every event from now on, just because, I mean, until the transition is complete. I expected that they were just going to like, hey, while we're all here, here's this machine. Now let's get to the reason that we brought you here. The way, I mean, kind of like the way that the Mac got, in the height of the iPhone fervor.
I was kind of looking at their financial schedule, and they did their quarterly numbers like about a month. I believe it was like about a month and a half ago, which means that in a month and a half, they're going to do the next round of quarterly numbers. And I have a feeling that they're going to have the event either right before they come out with the numbers or right after.
That's weird timing. I mean, okay, and maybe, and we're way off topic now. That's weird timing though, because you're talking about July. You're talking about late July, mid to late July for an Apple event.
Right.
All right. Well, cool, man. We'll see what happens. Trying to think. There was one other thing that I wanted to talk about, but I'm now gonna like try to pin you down to be on soon because we're kind of out of time for today. But I really want to talk to you about AR and VR and mixed reality and why you think I'm full of guff and why I think you're a crazy old man who can't see the future. Will you come back for that, August?
Absolutely.